To successfully run in-house, you need not only skilled programmatic traders, but you also need data analysts, ad ops specialists. And this is all personnel that is expensive, number one. And also they're in high demand. So it's hard to retain them because brands want them, agencies want them, ad tech companies want them, big tech platforms want them. So maintaining this bandwidth in this headcount is very, very expensive and difficult to do. And then another hidden cost of in-housing, and this is actually my favorite one to talk about, is tech stack complexity.
Welcome to Inside AI Digital Podcast. I'm your host, YJ. And in each episode, we sit down with leaders from AI Digital and across ad tech industry to talk about how AI is reshaping media strategy and digital activation. Today's conversation focuses on evolving balance between in-house capabilities and external partnerships and how agencies and advertisers are approaching strategy, research, media planning in an increasingly fragmented media landscape. So joining us today is a very special guest and a good friend of mine, Sarah Moss. She's head of strategy at AI Digital, and Sarah brings a unique blend of academic and industry experience. So before moving into advertising, she was a math and statistic professor and later spent many years on the agency side, leading media, analytics, and account strategy. Sarah, welcome to the podcast.
Amazing. Thank you, YJ. I'm so excited to be here to chat with you. And, it's funny. I feel like I really can't get introduced anywhere without my math background being called out. So just shout out to math nerds around the world. But YJ, I'm excited to chat with you. And I just need everyone watching to know that YJ is the man, and the best part of my week is always the time I spend with YJ. So this is it. You guys are seeing it. This is the best part of my week.
So happy to have you on. So Sarah, obviously you have a very cool and unique background. Tell us a little bit about that transition into AI and ad tech and how your background has influenced the way you think about strategy and media planning.
Yeah, for sure. So it's been a fun transition. So, like you mentioned, YJ, I spent, the bulk of the beginning of my career on the agency side, and I now have moved into AI and ad tech. And if, someone were to ask me to describe how that transition has been for me with one word, the word I think I would use, and this will surprise you, by the way, the word I would use is fun. It's honestly been a fun transition for me because I essentially have gone from being on the client side to being on the service provider side. And I've really been able to take my knowledge of all of our clients' wants and needs, because I actually lived that myself for over 10 years, bringing that to this side of the business. And it's funny, being on the agency side, there's definitely good, there's definitely bad, there's definitely ugly. And, I experienced all of that. And so it's been, I think, a really good use of my agency tenure to bring that over to AI Digital. And it's been a privilege to work with the strategy team here that's incredibly talented and help mold that team into the type of heavy hitting support that agency teams actually need, because we have that knowledge of what those agency teams actually do need. From my experience on that side of the business. And you asked how has that impacted how I think about strategy? And I really think that making this transition from agency side to ad tech side has just made me feel like my conviction is stronger in terms of how important and how critical strategy actually is. Because if you think about it, our media ecosystem is so fragmented and it's not set up in favor of the agencies or of the advertisers. So the only way to win is to have a good strategy. And I think AI has had a really positive impact on strategy because, something I've always grappled with as someone who leads strategy teams is it always seems like 80% of the time we're just trying to get the work done. And then 20% of the time we're doing actual strategic work. And that seems so backwards. It really seems like the number should be flipped. And what AI has allowed us to do is it has allowed us to buy back time for ourselves, essentially, so that we can flip those numbers and spend the majority of our time doing the strategic work that only we can do. do. And I will say that I feel like my team right now is stronger than ever. And not only because, they're creating incredible high quality work, but I think they're happier, honestly. And it's because they're spending the majority of their time doing the thing they actually love, which is strategy. And then, just to touch on that last part of your question about media planning, I think, again, AI, technology, automation is going to, from this point forward and on, it's just going to play a bigger and bigger role. And not only media planning, but media execution, media optimization. And so again, going back to like my conviction that strategy is critical, having the right strategy is what sets all those other things down the right path. So again, I think it kind of all comes back to like strategy is really critical, especially right now, but we're really lucky because we're working in a time where is more and more time to actually do strategy.
Amazing. And if anyone else told me that they are having fun in this space, I probably would have doubted them. But knowing you, I totally believe you. And also even for myself, I studied pre-med biology and pursued opportunities in dental and pharmaceuticals, and it just wasn't a good fit for me. But being in the space, being in a strategic environment, and being ahead of innovation and having the opportunity to bring that to our clients, the advertisers and agencies, has been a fun experience. So I totally agree with you there. That said, some of the biggest challenges that agencies and marketers face today is just the sheer level of fragmentation that exists across consumers, advertisers, as well as the buy side. From your perspective on how we're navigating that complexity, where do you see the biggest gap when it comes to building a cohesive strategy across the open web and walled garden, and something that we're describing as the open garden?
Yeah, really love this question. So I think the first part of the question, like how are advertisers navigating that complexity and how are agencies doing it? I actually think anyone who is doing it correctly or doing it right at this point is they're building strategic partnerships. Because I don't care how sophisticated your in-house teams are. And mind you, when I worked on the agency side, like I worked with teams that were fully in-house. And then I also worked with teams that partnered with managed service providers, much like AI Digital. But I don't care how sophisticated your in-house team is. There's always some advantage that can be gained through a good partnership, whether it's access to something you don't have internally, expertise you don't have internally. It could also just be like bandwidth, like you need more bandwidth to manage your business. It could also be like proprietary tech. So I think that, the agencies that are navigating that complexity right are building strategic partnerships. The single biggest gap I see though, when advertisers are approaching, this ecosystem, this very fragmented ecosystem of the open web and walled gardens, the biggest gap I see is when there are single platform strategies. So when I say single platform, I might mean like a single DSP, or it could be just like they're executing on paid social only. And where this becomes problematic is all of these platforms that we work with, they are businesses. Like they are all trying to make a buck. So they have their own best interest in mind. So when you're putting all of your eggs in one basket, essentially, and you're working with one platform, that platform, instead of you dictating your strategy, that platform and that platform's biases, they start dictating your strategy. So I think that, this is really where the open garden framework that AI Digital uses becomes so effective, because it really empowers marketers to have the freedom, the access, the flexibility to align their strategy with the best inventory, with the best tech, with the best data. So I do really feel like if anyone is running a single platform strategy, they probably need to have a fundamental mindset shift to ensure that their strategy is actually working for them and not working to the benefit of the platforms that we're buying this media from.
That's a great takeaway for agencies and brands that are currently struggling with the fragmentation. That said, over the years, we've seen a lot of experimentation around in-housing, especially with brands and agencies. And in theory, it promises, more control and transparency, but in practice, it can also introduce a lot of different operational challenges. So based on your experience, what are some pros and cons of in-housing versus choosing to partner with managed service teams that can help support some of that strategy, the research, and the execution?
So, like I mentioned earlier, I've done it both ways. I've done it completely in-house, and I've done it working with partners, and really taking more of a hybrid approach. So keeping some things in-house and then working strategically with partners on certain things that, were to our advantage. So hopefully that gives me a little street cred when I give my answer here. But I think the two biggest pros are actually things that you mentioned. So control and transparency. And control, I think, is pretty obvious. Like if you're running everything in-house, like you manage it end to end. So like you're making all the decisions and you're seeing everything that's going on. And I don't just mean like in terms of execution, you have control, but also you have control in terms of things like data ownership. Like you keep all of your data and it stays within your own ecosystem. So that's the control piece. And then the transparency piece, this is an interesting one, because if you own your own DSP seat and you see every line item in a campaign, you see all of the ad placements, that does reduce the ambiguity of like, where is my money going and where are my ads showing? But also, like, we know that the programmatic supply chain is incredibly opaque and that there are multiple intermediaries between the advertiser and the publisher. So, transparency, like, it's hard because it's like, yes, but it's also kind of like a red herring in my opinion as well. But yeah, I would say those are the two biggest pros of in-housing. But then when it comes to, and I actually like to call them the hidden costs of in-housing, because, sometimes they're not readily apparent, like what these cons of in-housing are. So the first one I would definitely say is like talent. To successfully run in-house, you need not only skilled programmatic traders, but you also need data analysts, ad ops specialists. And this is all personnel that is expensive, number one, and also they're in high demand. So it's hard to retain them because brands want them, agencies want them, ad tech companies want them, big tech platforms want them. So maintaining this bandwidth in this headcount is very, very expensive and difficult to do. And then, another hidden cost of in-housing, and this is actually my favorite one to talk about, is tech stack complexity. And I often think this is underestimated. And, this is essentially where the open garden, like what it was born out of. But, to run in-house, like you don't just need a DSP seat. Like you actually, to reach the ecosystem in full and to reach consumers in the places they consume media, when they consume media, how they consume media, you probably need to work with multiple DSPs. And then it's not even just the DSP licenses, like you have to do data management. So you need a CDP, you need a DMP. Brand safety is a huge concern. So you need like those verification tools like Double Verify and IIS. And I mean, honestly, running media is not worth running media at all if you're not measuring it. So you need measurement and attribution platforms. To just kind of put the cherry on top of all that is all of these systems must also integrate with each other and work together and talk to each other. And that is a big undertaking. So the tech stack component is a lot more complicated than I think people think. And, just going back, because I mentioned the open garden, just going back to that, that's really at the heart of it, is we want our partners that we're working with to have access to the tech they need that's going to help them achieve their objectives, the tech they need that's going to help them reach their target audience. And that's, what makes up the open garden. But then, one other hidden cost of in-housing that I'll share is just kind of like the limitation of the scale. So this kind of shows up in two different ways. The first way it shows up is if you're a single advertiser, you do not have the buying scale to drive efficiencies or benefits that a managed service partner does, because they can aggregate their spend across their entire client portfolio. And that collective buying power gets them things like rate advantages, volume discounts, access to preferred and premium inventory. And that's something that a single advertiser won't get on their own, but it's a benefit that managed service providers pass on to their clients. So that's one way that kind of scale limitations show up. The other way that scale limitations show up is just in terms of like cross-industry insight and perspective. Managed service providers, they work across verticals. They are likely testing all of the emerging platforms and tech in some way or another. They know exactly how your media metrics stack up to others in the industry. So it's just this greater perspective that they are able to give to any one advertiser. So, to kind of wrap this up, like something I would say is, the IAB actually says that 68%, and that's a big number, 68% of advertisers are working in some sort of hybrid capacity where they are retaining a partner for something. So I think that number in and of itself is just very telling. But I do know that, for companies that haven't done this before, that haven't worked with a partner, it can be very daunting because you feel like you're kind of just like turning over your budgets to them. But what I will say is if it does feel like that, you're actually working with the wrong partner because it shouldn't feel like that. And this is something that we actually really pride ourselves on at AI Digital is that we really function as a strategic extension of your team. And we bring to the table not just media execution, like we bring full strategy capabilities, research, competitive intelligence, buying efficiency, buying scale. Like we bring things to the table that work to our clients' advantage and make our clients like show up bigger than they actually are. So I think that that's what I would say to anyone who feels like, oh, working with a partner is daunting. Well, it's like when you find the right one, it should not feel like that.
Sarah, this is why I love chatting with you because I feel like I'm just sitting in a good lecture. I just learned so much from what you have to share. And I totally agree. You talked a little bit about the tech stack. I remember when I was in the agency side, part of what I did was managing the ad ops, but also spending time to evaluate different partners and helping build an internal tech stack at the agency. And I just didn't have time with everything that was going on. And neither did I have the expertise at the time to really best evaluate what is a good fit for the agency as well as for my clients and brands. So having a partnership, even the hybrid model that you talked about, could be a really good solution for a lot of marketers and agencies out there that just don't have the labor, resources, or the time. Sarah, thank you so much for joining us, sharing your perspective. Really enjoyed our conversation. And to everyone listening, thanks again for tuning in. We'll be back with more conversation on Inside AI Digital.